Hey guys, welcome to episode 9 of our campus placement interview series. Today we have Siddharth Tuli here with us. He received an offer from GS Associates in 2021. Let's know more about how he converted this company. Hi Siddharth, how's it going?
Hi Shivam, it's going good. How are you?
I'm great, Siddharth. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I'll just brief you how it's going to go today. I'm going to get to know you about your profile, what you did in college and all. And then we'll move on to the recruitment process that you had to go through at SBSC for GS Associates. All right,
Sounds good.
let's start. So what was your GPA in college?
Up to the fourth semester, as far as I remember, it was around 8.6.
That's decent. All right, moving on. Did you have any internships under your belt?
All of the internships that I did were not from a big corporate house. However, I did have two internships, one of which was for both of which were marketing internships only. However, both of them were not that big of a marketing house either. So I just had the decent internships under my belt, not something which was like really extraordinary or something which guaranteed me landing a job for sure.
All right, that's perfect. How did you get these internships?
So one internship out of those two, one internship was plainly through LinkedIn. I applied through the job portal which is available at LinkedIn for applying for internships. The second one was through a referral of a friend of mine who had already interned at the organization. So he put in a referral, not really a direct referral for me, but just put in a good word for me. They reached out to me in the following week, and then I landed an interview, and that's how I converted that internship.
Perfect. Tell me about your PORs.
Okay, so in the beginning of the first year itself, I knew that I just wanted to start something new of my own. So having an entrepreneurial inclination, I was always inclined to join the Young Entrepreneur Society at Bhagat Singh College. So that was one PR which I had in the end of the third year. I actually was fortunate enough to become the president of the society. So that was one PR. Then I was a research and analysis head for 180 Degrees Consulting at Bhagat Singh College. In the second year, I was also inclined to social entrepreneurship, so I ended up joining Inactis as a senior member. And from school times itself, I've been a very keen quizzing fanatic. So from the first year itself, I joined the quizzing society, and the end of the third year, I was an executive member at the quizzing society.
So I believe you were a part of a lot of societies in college.
Yeah, I just thought that those were an outlet for me to actually explore what DU actually has to offer.
Absolutely, that's really good. Did you pursue any course or any certifications at the time?
Nothing which I can remember as of right now at the point when I had applied to ZS. Maybe after when I converted the interview, I did 2 or 3 courses which are required for the job only. But I did not do anything prior to that. However, I'm sure that I mentioned my Excel certifications, MS Excel certifications from Udemy, only nothing too fancy. And I guess there was one more, which was an entrepreneurship course, which I did just so that I could contribute better to the societies that I was at.
Perfect. As far as I know, the recruitment drive for GS, the rounds that were there, they were quite different from other recruitment drives that take place at the campus, right? So can you tell me how many rounds there were in GS and what were they?
Okay, so the number of rounds remain consistent. However, the kind of like the type of rounds were the only thing that changed. So the aptitude was there as per general. Then they did not have a group discussion, which was replaced by a case slash DI type solving question, multiple questions, which had a data set which we had to solve within an hour, and then we had an interview on that basis. And then we had a third round, which was an HR slash fit round.
So tell me about the aptitude test. How many sections were there?
Okay, so the sections were named the same. However, the types of questions that ended up coming were a little different. So they did not have a distinguished section. They notified us that we would have a verbal, a quant slash LR section, and then a very intensive DI section. because the profile requires and it calls for us to be very efficient when it comes to data handling and actually interpreting the data in a very comprehensive manner. And that's why I feel that there are very focused 2 rounds of qualification solely based on how we interpret data. So that was one part which I feel that was different from other aptitude tests, that the data interpretation round was actually very comprehensive. The LR and quant section was mixed, that we got we got seating arrangement questions, which were pretty like a moderate to difficult level. But the quant section was not really that difficult. It aimed at just checking as to whether we have that competency when it comes to solving QA questions. And verbal questions were somehow just checking whether we have a basic understanding of the language, as well as how expansive our vocabulary is. The vocabulary section mainly was through finding synonyms, antonyms, and also a sentence correction portion within the aptitude test.
All right. So just to clarify, the sections, there was no differentiation and the time wasn't allotted to each section. It was just 1 hour or 1.5 hours that was given, and you have to cover all 30, 40 questions that there were.
Yeah. So the flow of the aptitude section ultimately came out to be about VA, QA, and LR. And then ultimately we had a dedicated DI section in which we had multiple pie charts and graphs, which we had to then analyze. And it wasn't the same as the DI that we had done in the placement rounds of other companies. The only difference that I think is noticeable and actually which should be mentioned is that it also focused on what we understood out of the data, which could differ from me and you. So it was a more subjective approach when it came to certain questions, where there might be a best answer, but there also might be an answer which you might think is right, but might not suit the data set that they've provided. So it was more intensive because you have to revisit the data set that they're providing back and back again, so that you can provide the best answer that they have provided within the options that they provide.
All right. So you're saying that immediately after the aptitude test got over, you would be sent off to this portal where you'll have to go through the DI sets, right?
Yeah. So they had a dedicated portion separately for it.
Was there any negative marking in the aptitude test?
There was no negative marking as such, but the time constraint was so great.
Or this is something the candidate has to be careful about regarding the time. All right.
Definitely,
so
yeah.
How much time did it take that you found out your results of the aptitude?
So the time gap between me knowing my aptitude results and me getting the call for the next round, which was more of a case study round, was 1 to 2 days. We completed our test early in the morning, and I remember the next day, late evening, is when we got to know about our results. And then we had the case round the next day in the morning.
I believe it was at 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah. So we were in our own like lockdown phase where we all were sleeping at around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But that had to change for this thing in particular, because I remember that most of my friends kept calling me because I forgot that to do there in the morning. But then that's bittersweet, because then I end up waking up at 7 only. But yeah, it was at 8 in the morning, and that is also something which you will need to manage.
Absolutely. So tell me about the case round. What was it mainly about? What kinds of questions there were?
So in the case round in particular, there were multiple data sets which concentrated on providing different sets of information. So my case was centered more towards salespeople and their compensation and bonus/commission like structure and brackets within which they will fall. So we had to look at their individual sales and then compare that to the standards that were set by the organization, and then decide accordingly whether they were suited for the bonus or not. So in my particular data set, there were 4 questions, which I can remember of. From one particular data set, there were 3. So from one particular data set, I had 4 questions. And I can guarantee that for those 4 questions, you will have to revisit the data set every time. For every question, you will have to reread that particular portion, because each question will demand from you a different portion. And then the second and third data set required the same thing. However, since one of them was a geographical division based question, so it also asked for a qualitative slash subjective answer from me. That do you think that what do you think is the contributing factor to low sales, or why do you think that this kind of error is happening in the data set? They particularly asked what are the two mistakes that you can find within the data set. So within the data set, if I don't read it properly and I don't revisit it with every question, I will not understand what kind of mistake they're talking about. And
So
that's
from what I gather, Siddharth, is that there were basically 4 questions. The first one was kind of a calculation-based DI, where it was simple calculation, where if you had to find out the commission that needs to be paid, and it was, let's say, it was given in a monthly basis, and you need to find that in the yearly basis as well. So that is something that calculation is involved over there. The second question was kind of finding the error between the data set, that you have to look at if there's any error in calculation of commission or the geographical area, or what the bill number is, something like that. And then there are subjective questions regarding, one was regarding the compensation, if you think that this compensation structure of the salespeople is correct. And you mentioned the fourth one, which was that?
The fact that on the basis of the geographical sales also, why do you think that the sales have been lacking? So most of the issues were with the salesperson being deployed into geographical locations at once. So like they will find it difficult to manage 2 geographical locations at once. So the overburdening of work also might be one reason. So stuff like that.
Okay. What was the duration of this test?
1 hour for solving, and then the sheets that we had completed them on, or the Word document that we were solving the stuff on, we were given an additional 30 minutes.
So moving forward, we'll come to the interview round. And this was the interview where you had to follow up on the case that you presented, right? So can you tell me more about that?
Okay, so as soon as we submitted our sheets, we had a follow-up interview round with someone who is going to ask us cross questions on the basis of the responses that we have given to that case study. So since it is a qualitative and decision-making case study, everyone's decision will differ, and that is why they want to clarify as to what is our thought process behind that particular decision, and why we took that particular decision, and at the same time also understand the rationale behind writing what we have written down, because it is very difficult to explain within very short span of time why we have given that particular answer.
All right, so you had to present your case that you prepared in the morning. So you would have to share screen the pages, right, where you wrote down your
Yeah.
answers. And then you had to present
So
to the person who's taking your interview about why you took that decision. And regarding the error point, I believe they asked us to find out 2 or 3 errors, whereas in the whole data set, there were 4 or 5. So it was
yeah,
like a
exactly.
brownie point if someone could find those errors during the interview as well.
Yeah, definitely.
After you cleared this round, what was the next round that you had to go through?
So after clearing this round, I got to know about me clearing this round the same afternoon, but the HR round was after one day. So
Okay.
we sat for our HR slash fit interview, which was the last round of the CS Associates placement drive. So the HR slash fit round was more on the lines of them getting to know us through our CV and through how we are as an individual. So the questions were not exactly centered about ODA, but they asked questions right from my CV, which would tell whether I'm suited for the job or not. So it was it was a borderline stress interview. I would say that it was a stress interview, but it was almost there, like being a stress interview is what I think.
Absolutely. So were any technical questions asked you regarding guesstimates or case interviews?
I was asked one guesstimate, and that was it. However, most of my peers were also asked puzzles and riddles. So that is something which completely depends on the discretion of the interviewer that you are set up with.
So how did you prep for this final interview? Where do you get to know the guesstimates and the puzzles and all?
Okay, so majorly through my series only, I did not have much idea about how to approach these guesstimates until I also sat for a lot of webinars which were being organized at that point of time by a lot of societies within the DU circuit only, which were focused on telling us more about what are guesstimates and what is the structure as to how to approach a guesstimate. But then puzzles is something which you can't prepare for too much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Puzzles will differ from every interviewer, and that's something which you will have to be lucky about, I guess.
Well, I believe it's really difficult to solve a puzzle during the interview, because even if you could solve it afterwards, or you could say that it's easier when you're thinking about it later, but during that stress interview, it's really hard to make that click in your head that this is how you're going to solve it. Right.
Definitely.
But just to put it out there, if you solve a puzzle during an interview, it's a huge advantage that you have, because solving a puzzle during an interview, it's really good. And not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, one of my peers was asked the question about number of squares on a chessboard. Now that is something which I'll leave up to you guys who will end up listening to this. That you should try and find out how many squares are there on a chessboard, and the answer is not 64. Just in case, just know that if you possess the particular skill sets that are required for that profile, you will be good in your own interview. They are not looking for someone who is already an ODA. They want to meet someone who will become an ODA when
Absolutely.
they are trained properly.
Perfect. So adding on to what Siddharth said, this is for the people who actually make it to the last round. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that the final interview, it's a stress interview, which you have never sat for before, because we didn't. And it was the first time that we were facing. So what I want to tell you is that even if they're criticizing your answers and they're asking a lot of follow-up questions, it's just because they want to create an environment where they want to see if you're confident enough to handle the situation. All right. So that's one thing from my side. Don't panic at all. Even if you don't know the question, you don't understand the question, just ask them. And best of luck to all of you.